Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today is the 29th of September 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So a few things to go through today with regards to core Ethereum development here. And I just wanted to start with this tweet that was put out by Brock Elmore here, who is the chief architect at Nascent, which is a fund in the space. So he said, lukewarm take, Geth needs to adapt or die. Akula and Aragon are an order of magnitude better or more on multiple axes, and Geth will hold back and slow down improvements to L1s and L2s. Hats off for what it's done for the ecosystem, but now it's 661,000 lines of tech debt. This is obviously a pretty scathing tweet towards Geth, but I completely disagree with this, and for a number of reasons. And I'll go through the tweet that Peter, obviously the team lead at Geth, put out here first before I dive into my own thoughts here. He said, can you guys please just make that better client than Geth already and everyone can switch over to it? You've been saying it for years now. I just want to retire and it's annoying that everyone keeps promising me that I can, but nobody delivers the salvation client already. Obviously, he's being tongue-in-cheek here. There is no such thing as a perfect client and he knows that, but he has a point. The Ethereum execution layer client diversity, as we all know, is still pretty bad, right? It's 80% dominated by Geth. But what that really shows is that people are using Geth over the alternatives, right? Such as Aragon, such as Akula, such as Besu, right? So Geth must be doing something right. Like, Geth mustn't be as bad as everyone says it is, because 80% of the network is using it. I mean, like, I've used Geth plenty of times in the past, and there's Nethermind as well, of course. And I've used all of the clients, but the reason why, or at least one of the major reasons why Geth is still so popular is because it is stable. It has a very stable client that's been around since day one. It's reliable. It doesn't have all these edge case bugs that a lot of the other clients have. And the other clients, such as Aragon, are actually a fork of Geth. Obviously, it's been modified since, but it's still using the Geth code base under the hood. So I think it's very, very harsh by of Brock here to say that Geth is tech debt or Geth needs to adapt or die. I think Geth should keep doing what it's doing by being a stable and reliable client and leave it up to the other clients to do other things, like maybe making it easier to sync an archive node, which is what Aragon has done, right? And on top of this, during the merge testing process, Aragon and the other clients, I believe, had many more bugs or many more kind of like issues than Geth did. And that again speaks to that stability that Geth has and that reliability that Geth has that the other clients just don't have at this point in time. They're not up to the same level as Geth in that regard. And I believe even like right up until the merge happened and even post-merge, Aragon was having issues with block production, right? Having bugs there on mainnet. Now, I don't want to bash Aragon or anything like that. It's a great client, and I think all the execution layers clients are great. But if you want to come at the king, which is Geth, you got to do a lot more than just build a client for a couple of years and make it sync maybe an archive node fast or anything like that. The true measure, I think, of a client is its stability and reliability. Everything else is just a bonus on top of that. That is basically table stakes. You have to be a stable client and you have to be reliable, or else, especially in a post-merge world where if an execution layer client falls over, well, if you're a validator, then you need to get that back up and running, or else you're not validating anymore. You're actually offline as viewed by the network, and you are not earning rewards anymore. So it's extremely important for things to be stable. That's again why Geth is at 80%, because people know that it's stable, they know that it's secure, and they know that it's reliable. So I don't know why Brock put this out. I really don't think that this was very, very nice of him to put this out. I'm all for giving constructive feedback, but he's basically just said that Geth just needs to go away because it's tech debt, when that is the furthest from the truth. Like, it doesn't matter that Geth has been around so long and that it has a lot of maybe, I guess, like in the objective sense of the word, tech debt or redundant kind of things that it does, or it could do things better. That's, again, not the point of the Geth client. The point is to be stable and reliable. And on that front as well, I think this is one thing that people who aren't in software development don't understand, is that you can add plenty of features, but you have to maintain those features, right? You can't just add a feature and then that's it. Like, it's done and there's nothing to maintain. That's not how it works at all. And if you want to do software like that, then it becomes extremely limiting. So, for example, the Bitcoin network, extremely limited, but it's stable and reliable, right? It's still producing blocks. It has had bugs in the past, but they've been relatively minor. There has been a couple of critical ones, but they've been fixed. But it's it's stable and reliable, but in turn it's extremely simple because features aren't added very often to the Bitcoin code base. Whereas within Ethereum, features are added all the time to the protocol layer. I mean, we just did one of the biggest feature upgrade in Ethereum's history with the merge. That stuff doesn't just happen once. You can't just deploy the feature and that's it. There needs to be maintenance. There needs to be someone kind of making sure that things are running smoothly. There needs to be someone there to fix things if anything kind of goes wrong. And that all falls back into something being stable and reliable, which is what I think Geth has. I mean, that is what Geth has earned since Genesis, being a stable and reliable client and being an enduring client. I mean, the only other client that was around since then was the Parity client, which actually, I've gone through this before, but was retired, and then it became Open Ethereum, which ultimately became ultimately that effort was put towards Aragon here, because the people that were supporting Open Ethereum Gnosis are supporting Aragon now, and now we have Akula as well, and then there's Nethermind, of course, which are Nethermind's definitely independent. They've been around for a little while now, but Geth has been there since Genesis. So has Peter. Peter has literally been working on Geth since Genesis back in 2015. So I think that he knows a thing or two about Ethereum core development, right? And I think that his points around why haven't people switched is very salient. Like, it's because Geth is reliable and stable. And I've said that enough times already. I think I've made my point. But I just wanted to go through that for people that may have seen this thread today and may not realize why people are still using Geth. It's got nothing to do with it just being around the longest, right? Otherwise, people would still be using Parity and Open Ethereum. What's it got to do with is the fact that it has been maintained, it is stable, it is reliable, and people love using it, especially in a post-merge world where the reliability and stability of an execution layer client is what makes or breaks their validators, right? In simple terms. So yeah, anyway, moving on from that to another tweet from Ryan Sean Adams today, where he said, "We need fewer ETH killers, we need more killer apps." This is so true. I've talked about this on the refill before, but like, how many times have these ETH killers come out, right? Or these other layer ones come out and say, we've got unlimited scalability, we've got all this block space, blah, blah, blah. And that block space never gets filled up. We have way more block space available in crypto than there is being used, right? Like, obviously Ethereum block space has been at 100% capacity for a very long time, but literally no other chain, not even Bitcoin during the bear market, is at 100% capacity all the time, right? Nothing else. So they've got the block space, but there's just no demand to use it. And the same is true for layer 2s. Layer 2s still have plenty of block space, especially with Arbitrum with Nitro. They got plenty of block space available, but the demand isn't there. Now, of course, we're in a general bear market right now, so demand is generally lower, but the thing is that people and funds and developers and builders have just way over-indexed on these layer ones and under-indexed on actually building killer applications. Right now, I would say there's only really two things that you could say with certainty have enduring product market fit, and that is NFTs and DeFi. And even NFTs, some people will say that it was a fad. I don't believe it's a fad, but people will say it's a fad. So really, you could just say that DeFi and the things that fall into that, such as a money or a store of value, such as ETH and BTC, are really the only things in terms of use cases that we have. And then you can argue, well, that's why Ethereum has Ethereum's block space is so valuable, because that's where DeFi is. That is literally like where the majority of DeFi sits today, right? I'm not just talking about TVL, I'm talking about all the metrics surrounding that. So when you think of it like that, I don't just want to see less ETH killers because I think they're totally pointless, but I just want to see more killer apps. I want to see things taking advantage of the block space that is already available today, not more protocols spinning up not more protocols being spun up with more block space that no one's going to use, paid for via token inflation, with VCs that got in early and then are just dumping on everyone. Like, it's just so toxic and so extractive. It doesn't actually add any value to the ecosystem. All it does is make the early buyers into these things richer, because usually it's the same VCs, the same funds who just recycle through these things. They call every new L1 next generation and all that crap, right? And there's just been way too much focus on that rather than focusing on those, on more applications. It doesn't have to be a quote-unquote killer application, but just more applications in general that actually use the block space that we have today, rather than trying to create more block space just to become a ghost chain. But yeah, I just wanted to make a comment on that because I see this way too often in crypto. And I was thinking about it just before, actually. Like, the amount of people that like shill these L1s, and you see them like on Twitter, you see them on Reddit and everywhere like that. And then I reckon the majority of those people haven't even used the damn thing, because you look at the on-chain usage and it's basically non-existent. So these people are just literally buying into an ecosystem that they've probably heard someone talk about on YouTube, or they've heard someone, maybe someone shilled it to them in real life or something, right? Maybe their friends are all about it, but they're just buying it on a centralized exchange and they're not even actually using the chain at all. And in that world, like, you can see why we have this saturation of block space, because even the people who are saying that they're the most bullish on a particular L1 aren't even using it. Like, I mean, I use Ethereum all the time. I'm sure all of you do as well. We use layer 2s. We love it. We love getting amongst it. But from my experience, most of the other L1 ecosystems, their participants or their community are really just speculators. They're really just mercenaries. They don't actually use anything. And if they did, I think they would quickly realize how broken a lot of these things are. I mean, I've actually explored these other L1s, and holy shit, like, people say the Ethereum UX and UI is bad and is poor and doesn't lend itself to mass adoption, which is fair, but compared to the other layer 1s, it is so far ahead, guys. Like, I don't know if you've used some of the other layer 1s out there. I'm not going to name names because I don't want to go down that path, but like, some of them are just absolutely atrocious. Like, they're just so confusing, and you, when you use it, you realize that all these top level narratives that people always talk about aren't true. They break down extremely quickly when you actually try to use the thing. Think about, I will name one name because it's a perfect example. Think about Cardano, all the hype leading up to their smart contract launched, and then smart contracts launched, and people realized that it was extremely limited because it uses the UTXO model, accounting model, right? And it could only do whatever it was, one transaction per block or something on chain and things like that. So, like, people finally realize, like, the narrative of Cardano getting smart contracts and automatically taking over the crypto space is actually not true. And oh wow, it's not as scalable as I thought it would be. And all these other things that happen. It's because narratives are easy to spread, like, words are cheap, but actually using the thing and realizing that those narratives are false, most people won't do. Most people will just keep listening to the YouTubers that tell them everything's going to be all right, everything's going to pump, buy this thing, blah, blah, blah. And they're going to keep getting, I guess, like, fed those narratives perpetually. But until you actually use the thing, you don't know what's true and what's not. Whereas I have used most of them, and I can tell you that most of them are garbage. Like, not even just because they've got no product market fit, they're just impossible to use, so complicated. And I just come back to Ethereum and I'm like, okay, I can see how Ethereum is easy for me to use because I'm so used to it. But, like, just taking a step back and looking at it, MetaMask and interacting with Ethereum generally, and all the tooling and all the infrastructure around it, is so far ahead of all these other ecosystems that I think that's definitely something that is not praised enough and not brought up enough within the crypto ecosystem. All right, on to a fresh regulatory update here. So yesterday, the CFTC filed a declaration informing the court that it seeks to perfect services of process of a lawsuit on every voting member of Ooki DAO via its chatbot and forum posts. So I talked about this, I believe, last week or the week before, about how the CFTC is going after Ooki DAO, formerly known as BZX, but not only the operators, but I guess not only the centralized team behind it, but everyone that participated in the DAO, which is obviously scary, because if they're going after people who have just voted on a snapshot proposal, for example, or being participants in the DAO via forum posts and chatbots, that means you potentially are liable here, which is crazy, because all this is going to do is do that chilling effect again, which is going to scare people off participating in governance. And the problem is that we've already had really low governance turnout for a lot of these things for other reasons, and now there's just another reason on top of it. So the meme of, like, governance tokens is just taking another hit. I mean, if no one wants to vote on these things because they could draw the eye of regulators, well, I mean, that just is really, really bad for the ecosystem generally. But not only that, it's also bad for any kind of value accrual for these tokens. That's the bearish take here. The bullish take, or I guess, like, the other side of things, is that this doesn't actually happen. The CFTC steps back, or they lose, or whatever. But right now, it's not looking too good based on what they're trying to do here. And I had hoped that the CFTC wouldn't go down a similar path that the SEC has gone down with regards to coming on hard against crypto. But it seems like they're going even harder. I mean, I don't even think the SEC went this far. Like, this is pretty far, guys. Charging people who or I guess like at least going after people who voted on things within a DAO, even if they were a small holder and didn't really have much, I guess, like say in the matter. That's pretty crazy when you think about that. But we're gonna have to see what shakes out here and how this progresses. But it's not very good news, that's for sure. All right, so I came across this project the other day called Stackr Network, and this is basically something that I spoke about a couple of weeks ago, where I said that I was quoting Ryan B's tweet on Twitter, where he was talking about a tool that was allowed people to easily deploy their own rollup on Ethereum, right? Well, that's exactly what Stackr Network is building. They're building an SDK for building application-specific rollups using a decentralized network of independent sequences. And this is really cool. I mean, this is this thread from Kartulkia, who works at R&D in the privacy and scaling explorations group at the Ethereum Foundation, who's also working on Stackr Network here. And he says, excited to finally share what I had been working on in the past few days, and more so because L2 infrastructure made easy. App-specific rollups for all right on Ethereum. If you're interested in the project and want to collaborate or just want to chat about it, DM's always open. So that's a shout out there for participating there. But what this basically does, and I watched the demo video of this, is it basically gives you this tweet from Ryan Berkman's here, who I just mentioned. Well, you basically go in the command line as a developer. You say, I want to essentially spin up a roll-up, right? Or spin up a roll-up that's ready to go, an app-specific roll-up, and I want to do it on Ethereum mainnet. And then all that happens in the background, and you're ready to go. Now, the reason why we would want this is because we want to compete with networks such as Cosmos that actually offers this functionality for their own application-specific chain. So obviously not a roll-up, but a chain. And you remember DYDX cited one of the reasons that they weren't sticking with Ethereum, sticking with a rollup, was because they believed that the Cosmos SDK better suited their needs because it allowed them to do all this sorts of stuff and allowed them to, plug and play and edit or, configure their rollup whichever way they wanted to. Well, that's exactly what Stackr Network is trying to do here. So I'm super excited about this. I am really glad that someone is finally building this because it's definitely overdue. And I think that it hasn't been around for very long yet, but they seem to have built a lot from the demo video that I watched. And they were also a finalist of ETH Global. I have the ETHOnline event held by ETH Global, and I've got the tweet here of all the finalists, but you can see here that Stackr Network is one of those. So obviously a project that has also been noticed by the ETHOnline judges, which is very, very cool. But I think generally this is needed for... So it's not only needed for developers and to make developers' lives easier, I think it's just needed for Ethereum to be able to compete on this front with other things like the Cosmos SDK. If I had to say one nice thing about Cosmos, I don't hate Cosmos or anything like that, but I think just Cosmos generally, their model doesn't really make much sense and their architecture doesn't really make much sense. But if I had to say one nice thing about it is that Cosmos SDK, from everything that I've heard, is very appealing to developers. So if we can take that concept and apply it to a rollup or an app-specific rollup SDK, and SDK stands for Software Development Kit for you non-devs out there. But essentially, if we can take that and apply it to rollups, well, then we should, in theory, get a much more vibrant app-specific rollup ecosystem and have much more competition in the ecosystem as well. So very cool to see this. You can read this thread. I'll link it in the YouTube description below, and I'll also link the tweet with the ETHOnline finalists as well, as there's more than just Stackr Network in here. There's a bunch of them, and they're all linked and talked about in this thread. All right, so Timur here has introduced a Metablock MEV dashboard, which is a set of aggregated MEV stats on Ethereum. Now, I think I remember highlighting an early iteration of this a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago at this stage. But essentially what this allows you to do is enter a transaction hash or block number to look at all the MEV around that. Now, I don't have one handy right now, but there is a dashboard that you can kind of look at, and it shows you here various metrics around MEV. Yeah, I remember I showed this on the Refuel a little while ago, but there's an explorer here as well that you can plug into, and Timur's thread goes into a bit more detail about this as well. So just wanted to highlight this because I know MEV is always a big topic on everyone's mind. You can check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, an update here out of Sismo today. So they've got a new ZK badge that you qualify for if you participated in Gitcoin grants round 15. So this is really cool. So say you donated to Gitcoin grants round 15 from a private wallet, from a wallet that you don't want associated with your identity at all, but you still want to prove that you participated in the round. Well, now you can. You can mint this Gitcoin contributor ZK badge to your public ENS wallet and signal your support to Ethereum, because the way the Sismo protocol works is that it basically cryptographically guarantees that you did participate in the round, but on a different wallet. And that badge is minted from that wallet, but it doesn't reveal what that wallet is. It won't actually reveal anything about that wallet. So people can see that the proof that you participated in this round, cryptographic proof that you participated in this round, but they can't actually see from which wallet you participated from. This is super cool. Like, this is one of the things that non-financial things in Ethereum that I'm most excited about. Like, the use cases of this are massive. And I was talking about this in the Daily Gwei Discord channel the other day. We were talking about this recent Optus is a large telecommunications company in Australia. They recently had a massive data breach of, I think, up to 10 million customer records, or I guess like customers' records were breached here. And I was saying how that with this technology that Sismo is working with, you can basically imagine a world where you have a thing where everyone stores their data on their own personal device. There's no need to store it on a centralized database within, Optus's servers or some other server out there. You can store all your personal data on your device. And then when you need to KYC with a provider or AML with someone, you can basically have a badge in this context that proves who you are without having to reveal any of the information. And on top of that, you can actually revoke that badge at any time from that provider. So you can basically take away their view of things from them at any time. This is huge, guys. Like data protection, data privacy is a massive issue in the normal Web 2 internet world. Like, it's huge. The amount of hacks that go on, the amount of data that's leaked everywhere, the little digital little digital privacy that we have we basically don't really have digital privacy, right? It's basically non-existent. And I think people are looking more and more as time goes on for tools to protect themselves. So if I had the option to be able to keep all my data on my local device, protected by secure elements such as on the iPhone, through Face ID or passcodes or anything like that, where only whoever has access to my device can access that, just absolutely massive. And this falls into something like sign-in with Ethereum, or like your Ethereum wallet in general, where when you've got your hardware wallet, for example, and you've got your private key stored on there in a secure element, the only way to access that private key, or to access that element, or to access the signing infrastructure, which is the button that you press to sign a transaction, is to have physical access to that device. So the most important part, it stays on the device, which is the private key. You sign a transaction with it, and then it goes off, and you have cryptographic proof that you actually own that address because you've signed it with your hardware wallet, and there's no need for your private key to be exposed to digital infrastructure, to infrastructure that's connected to the internet, and that obviously is very good for security. But the same concepts apply to data. We can protect data in the same way. We just got to build the infrastructure to do it. And I've disclosed this before, but another disclosure, I am an investor in Sismo, but it's because, I'm not an investor. I'm not shilling them because I'm an investor. I'm an investor because I'm super excited about what they're building, and I want you guys to know why I'm excited about it and why I think it is one of the best non-financial use cases of Ethereum. And obviously, it has financial use cases attached to it, and you can do a bunch of things around that. But the fact that we have this infrastructure that we can use leveraging ZK technology is awesome, and I can't wait to see this get built out more, and I can't wait to see more and more projects use this. All right, so a new protocol called Gravity Protocol was announced today, and they're calling themselves an ETH-centric borrowing protocol. So they got a little thread here describing what they are, but basically they start the thread off by saying, shortly post-merge, Lido and Coinbase had produced just under 50% of random sampling of 1K blocks. Excess concentration among ETH liquid staking derivatives, or LSDs, is not ideal for any decentralized protocol. It's not Lido nor Coinbase's fault that they're dominant. They offer great products. It's the result of uneven distribution of use cases, liquidity, integrations, etc. By acting now, we can reduce LSD concentration and improve the health of Ethereum. DeFi succeeds when ETH succeeds. So they're introducing Gravity, which is an ETH-centric borrowing protocol focused on fueling decentralization for Ethereum. It's inspired by liquidity, and Gravity will allow holders of ETH and LSD, such as RETH, STETH, etc., to borrow in an interest-free and capital-efficient way. And by providing shared access to leverage and liquidity across LSDs, we can reduce centralization risk for Ethereum. So basically, the TLDR here is that they're trying to bring all the liquidity and of LSDs together so that it doesn't concentrate into any one LSD just for liquidity reasons. So for example, obviously STETH has a lot of liquidity because it has a lot of dominance within the Ethereum staking space as opposed to something like RETH. And that means that liquidity, we all know liquidity begets liquidity, and it means that STETH dominance can go up because of that. So how do we reduce that? Well, there's a bunch of other ways that I've talked about before of how to reduce Lido's dominance, but I'm not going to go into that now. How do we reduce it on the liquidity side of things? Well, we bring it all together in something like Gravity Protocol, and we use different mechanisms, and the mechanisms are detailed, I believe, in the thread and the blog post here, to enable shared liquidity across these things in order to basically say to users, hey, you don't have to worry about liquidity. Go with any staking provider you want that's supported by this protocol, because we've got your back. That's my understanding of it. If I'm wrong, please call me out on that. But that's definitely how I understand it after reading the thread and the blog post here. But I think this is a cool idea. I think if it can work, it really is great, and it really will encourage more decentralization on the LSD space. And it's just another tool in our toolbox to essentially encourage decentralization on the Ethereum core protocol layer, which is the whole point of, I guess, like us doing anything, right? Like if we can't maintain decentralization of the base layer, then we can all pack up and go home. But luckily, there are so many different efforts happening across so many different parts of the ecosystem that I'm more confident than ever that we can actually make Ethereum even more decentralized than it is today, when I do consider it to still be extremely decentralized today. And I'm very confident that we can fight off these centralization concerns using all of these tools that we have today and the more that are coming out over time. All right, so speaking of application-specific rollups, I came across this project called Aevo. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but I'm going to say Aevo from now on. So basically, this is an options app-specific rollup that's being built on Ethereum here. And I believe the team behind Ribbon Finance is working with Aevo, or maybe even building Aevo themselves. But this is really cool. They're calling it a next-generation options exchange, and this exchange is built from the ground up for pro traders with a high-performance order book, robust margining system, daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly options built on a custom rollup designed for scale. So where DYDX is leaving Ethereum, right, and going to Cosmos, Aevo has come along and said, well, no, we're going to stick on Ethereum with a custom rollup, and we're going to do an entire options exchange on here, which is very cool. Now, obviously, DYDX is not an options exchange. They are a derivatives exchange for perpetuals products, but I do believe they want to expand their horizons as well. But I guess like Aevo wouldn't be directly competing with them once they go to Cosmos, but that's a whole nother discussion. But generally excited to see another roll-up, guys. Like as I said before, our specific roll-ups are going to be a thing. They're going to be huge, but we need better infrastructure for people to be able to build them so that we can get more of them. It's obvious that the Aevo team here has just taken upon themselves to build their own custom rollup, but if we get the Stackr Network vision here, and we're basically going to have an easy way for people to just deploy rollups on the same infrastructure, but make it their own. They can configure it, they can do things with it, they can do whatever they want on it, and then we'll get like a much more vibrant app-specific rollup ecosystem, which obviously I want to see. I want to see thousands of these things proliferate, and I think that it'll be really cool to have obviously just a handful of the generalized rollups, as I've talked about before. There's not going to be many of those, but I do believe there's going to be lots and lots of these app-specific rollups because it just makes the most sense for a lot of these things. But yeah, you can check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But I think on that note, that's going to be it for today. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.